Shit, I didn't check what number we're on. Oh well, it's like 37, I think. I mean, I can look it up. I think it's 37 because I haven't released the hunting trip yet.
Okay, I think one of those was 37.
Well, I'm gonna release that as a full bonus, so it's not going to get an episode number. It'll be number 4, I think, technically. But
it's not like leaving post-it notes or something.
I used to
have like a numbers list that we scratch off.
Well, it's the new computer's fault because once I put the new computer up, I don't have the little file that had all the shit listed in it. So anyway, it's post Thanksgiving. We survived Thanksgiving. This is definitely number 37. But we survived Thanksgiving. Nobody got shot on the hunting trip. I'm working on editing that thing down. It's like 7 hours long right now, and I've got to get it down to something a little more reasonable than that long. And I'm trying to work with the audio as best I can, but it's a little bit funky. But yeah, I mean, we're continuing on. Things are moving and shaking. Matthew Park's coming in Monday. We're going to talk to him about some of the new things he's got going on. Reached out to some other people. I'm trying to line up some new interviews and try to get back into it. Post-election, kind of let it go. So anyway, episode, what did I say? 37. It's underway. So,
all right, so we were both right.
Yeah.
I was thinking when we were hunting, that was 37.
Right, that would have been 37, but I think I'm going to leave that as a full bonus all by itself, which I think it'll be bonus number 4.
I dig it.
So, yeah, bonus episodes and stuff like that. Yeah, we had a good time. I had a good time on the trip. Did you have a good time on the trip?
No, Steph. Minor annoyances, but it's to be expected.
I mean, the weather was weird.
I only had one day of bad rain, really. It was cold the last morning.
Right, but it wasn't even like it was 80 one afternoon and then 40 the next morning and back and forth. It was a lesson in layering.
Yeah, I made the mistake of going out in the same fleece lined pants that I had one morning when I went one afternoon. It was very sweaty by the time I got to my spot.
But
sat there in my skivvies for a minute to cool off.
AC took one to the processor, and he's going to pick it up this week, so we'll have some jerky or something for next time everybody gets together.
That was fast. It took him 9 months, 10 months.
Yeah.
To get the last one.
No, it took the meat side of processing was like a month and a half for last year's.
No, was it? No.
It was the bus that Max was waiting on for almost a year. And then there was an argument about whether or not he paid for it and some other parts and pieces like that. But
definitely a good time.
Yeah, really good time. So yeah, Max has been out all weekend this weekend furthering his hunting, and then AC's doing his job or whatever that lame thing is. So it's just Sam and I. I'm going to try to get Max to get on the phone here in a little bit, but we'll see. So I put a homework out the other day, and there's a new Netflix just like limited series called We Are the Champions, and it may be the funniest thing on TV for me right now. That I was watching Nailed It with the kids earlier. Nailed It's pretty side-splitting funny too.
What?
Nailed It.
It's
a baking challenge show. It's like amateur bakers. Huh. They have this French guy that's like pro like dessert king. Like he sets up the challenges, and then he actually makes the models that they're supposed to be copying. And it's like 45 minutes to make this thing, and they're so bad and they're so funny. And this comedian lady that's the host of it is super funny. It's one of those where they're making fun of everybody. They're all having a good time knowing that they're not that good at it. And so it's like, it's not mean making fun of each other, but they're definitely just like, that's terrible, and they all laugh at it.
Poking at people.
Yeah. So.
Like, is this your first time using a mixer?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty funny. And people panic that, like, I mean, there's sometimes there are people that barely bake at all that come on the show, and it's like, how do they, like, people apply to be on the show. Like, how would you apply to be on the show if you baked like 4 cakes in your entire life?
I mean, a lot of those are semi-staged anyway. I'm sure they take multiple cuts. Like, hey, can you dumb yourself down a little bit? Just so we can make the show funnier.
Yeah, the show is pretty hilarious, though. I like it a lot. But
you did that too good. Can you mess up a couple times?
Yeah, that We Are the Champion show, dude. We watched, the missus and I watched the entire season yesterday, 2 days ago.
I did kind of like the cinematography and the way they kind of had
like
everything.
it's like a David Attenborough documentary, like style, visually, audibly.
I mean, they tried to go into the history of it.
Yeah, and there's some smart stuff. It's the same kind of thing too. Is they kind of make they're teasing about it, but they're also like really, like, they care about it. Like, they're showing that they care about like what these people care about, whatever the thing is. Because there's like a frog hopping one. There's the yo-yo championships, like the World Yo-Yo Championship, dog dancing, which is a really funny episode.
Yeah, I was familiar with the cheese rolling for a while.
Yeah, I'd heard of it. I've heard of most of them before.
Yeah.
Like I knew the frog hopping thing was like a state fair where you try to get it's a contest to see who can get a frog to jump the furthest or whatever. It's like 3 hops. World record's like 22 feet or something like that, which is pretty crazy. Like I'd heard of that one before. Yo-yo obviously was one that I'd heard of before. Like dog dancing doesn't necessarily surprise me, but I didn't know it was actually like an organized event.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that.
I knew there was like there's like heel training or heel show, like it's like just one of those like how well you can control the dog, like where they walk and the dog will go like between their feet and stuff, and like as you're walking it'll cross across your legs and go between your legs and all that kind of stuff. I knew that was like a thing that they did in the dog world, but this one's like actually dancing to music. It's a whole like another level to it. It's pretty crazy.
And with the cheese bowl thing, I knew there were races going down. I didn't realize there was races going up it.
Right, they do the kids race going up.
It's all just for younger, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is pretty smart. It's like all the kids are like, well, I want to do it. And they're like, you can't run down that hill because it said it was greater than 45 degrees.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about it too that's interesting is it's unofficial. It's one of those like the township cannot sign off on it per se, but they just don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like they don't disallow it. They don't stop it from happening, but they don't say, hey, this is our annual whatever and we're part of this, because people get pretty fucked up.
Yeah. They said nobody's broke their neck or their back
yet. Right. Nobody's died yet. But yeah, like the lady that's the champion girl or whatever, that 4-time world record, whatever, last year broke her collarbone, and like her right shoulder will never go back in a socket because of the way she broke her collarbone.
Well, it seemed like she was moving her arm around just fine.
Yeah.
Like after that. Showed a couple times like drinking a cup of coffee. And I was like, is she holding it funny? I'm like, no, she's doing good.
Yeah, she seemed okay. But I mean, it was very clearly when she showed the shoulders off, it's like,
Ooh, yeah, it's a big old bump popping up that's not supposed to be there.
And it looked to me like the local rugby team was the security crew. Did you see that?
No, they were the catchers. They were the catchers down at the bottom.
Yeah, but they were all, I mean, they look like, I don't know, the jerseys and stuff look like rugby. Like, do you think they were jerseys made for the job?
No, I think that was just their actual rugby jerseys.
That's what I'm saying. I was assuming that the local rugby team were the catchers. But like it wasn't that they were like a group of guys that just wanted to do that. It was that, hey, you're on the team, you want to come do this thing?
Yeah.
Like the team already existed outside of this thing. They just used that.
Or it could have been a publicity thing as well. If they know that there was a film crew come in, they're like, yeah, we want to be your people. Will you let our team be on there? We'll show our emblem.
Like that one I liked a lot, especially because like that one's like a super tradition. Like it's ridiculous. It's dumb. Like there's one, and I want to say it's not on the show, but it's one that I've seen like videos of. And I think it's in Spain, and it's some sort of it's like a telephone pole that they put on the end of a pier that goes straight out, and they like wax it or soap it or something like that, and it's like who can go the furthest.
I've seen one where they have to go up.
Yeah, the missus was saying that
it's a super greased pole, and people pretty much like stand on top of each other's shoulders. I want to say there's like something you had to carry up there, or there was something at the top of the pole you're trying to bring down.
Well, there's that human tower thing. I think it's an Italian one that's pretty crazy too.
Yeah, where they basically got like little kids up at the very top, and everybody's always falling at some point. And
then there's another one that was a different series on Netflix that we watched that was kind of the same idea, but it was one that was there's that crazy Spanish. It's kind of like rugby, soccer, MMA. Have you seen that?
I've looked that up before.
Yeah,
they looked it up recently. I was like, that is brutal. And it's been going on for hundreds of years.
Yeah, and apparently it was they started it because so each team in that one is like a borough of the city. And it was started when the city was under siege, and it scared the sieging army from coming in. Like, oh, they're in there killing each other by themselves. What are they going to do if we get in there? We better go away. Or at least that's the kind of the myth or something that grew up around it. But yeah, same kind of deal.
It started with a C.
I don't remember. Just brutal. It's just.
I think I saw it on the Chive once, and I was like, I think they call it one of the most brutal sports in the world, because guys will just straight up square off and just start going toe to toe.
Yeah, and apparently it's like
it's almost like rugby where you're trying to get the ball. I mean, how many times you can take the ball across the field?
Right, and there's something about it though where it's like once you're down, you have to stay down. And so, like, a lot of times what they're doing is, like, they're squaring off the fight because they're trying to knock you down.
So you can't get back up.
But if you go down, like, if you tackle them and go to the ground with them, you have to stay down with them because you both went to the ground. And so that's why they're, like, fist fighting, is because if they can punch you in the face and you fall over, then they can go punch somebody else in the face, and they can get more than one person down. at the same time. But if they go down with you, they have to stay on the ground with you. And so they both just they beat the shit out of each other for like 2 minutes, and then they fall over together and they lay on the ground until the end of that round. And then once the score happens, then they get up and start again.
Yeah.
And it's fucking brutal.
Yeah, I watched a couple of videos of it. I'm just like, damn, that's rough.
Yeah. Well, that's what the cheese wheel thing is too. They start rolling down that hill. It's good God.
After that, I mean, that chick that broke her collarbone, I don't think I would do it again. And apparently the last one that she did, that she just won. Sorry to ruin it for anybody that hasn't seen the episode.
She retired as the best female ever.
Yeah. I was like, that's good.
Yeah. But the way they wrote it though is what I was so impressed with. Like, it was neat, it was cool, it was fun, interesting stuff. But the way they wrote it and narrated it was my favorite part of it, because they made it like super intense, but super funny. Like, I can't remember laughing at a documentary style thing as hard as I did at a couple of those. Like the dog dancing one, it's like they're following this. There's a Russian national team that some oligarch is financing, and it's like the only one in the world that has a sponsor, that has somebody financing them. It's all self-sponsored outside of that. And so like they spend the whole episode like talking about this guy as if he's some like evil, like quiet, whatever, like the stereotypical Russian oligarch kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, he comes up, he's like, you guys did a really good job. Like, he's talking to him and he's like really supportive and stuff. But it's so funny because they just pushed it the whole way through it. Like, it was, I don't know, it was great. Anyway, I enjoyed it very much.
Igor, the Russian oligarch.
Yeah, Vlad. I think his name is Vlad.
Even better. Vlad.
Yeah. Perfectly sinister Vlad. So I forgot what I told you to hold on to.
Oh, we were talking about elections.
Yeah. I wanted to throw a hypothetical. We can do it too, but it would have been more fun with everybody here. Yeah. But the for clarification, make sure everybody hears this correctly. Hypothetically, what if Trump's right? Because that's what it was. You said something about how the continued push and fight and is undermining our faith in elections and stuff like that. Anyway, and so again, trying to step back and kind of rationally look at what's going on. Is it really a bad thing to prove that it was done correctly?
It depends on the process. When you automatically go into it saying that it's false, I mean, I understand our legal system is like that. When you prosecute someone, you're saying, this person's on trial for, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So, I mean, there's no real, retorting that around, if this person did this. I mean, I think if he would have just taken a different tone, which, I mean, fucking Trump is Trump. He's not going to do it anybody else's way or in any sort of respectable way whatsoever. But you just go into it just saying this is flawed. I mean, that's what people are going to take you at their word.
Right.
So they're not going to look at an open mind if it does go one way or another.
Right.
When you're automatically assuming
the
outcome.
Right. And this is before we get into the hypothetical part of it, but right. Going from the get-go saying this is going to be wrong before you even started, it's a problem. I agree with that part. That does undermine faith in the system, because you have people voting in person that may not have should have because they had the option to not vote in person, and they put themselves at risk with the COVID and all that kind of stuff. Well,
he actively told people before. I want to say it was a lot of the North Carolina voters. He encouraged them, if you voted by mail, to go in and vote again, just to make sure your vote got counted.
Right.
It's like you're encouraging people to commit a federal offense.
Right. Which is terrible and wrong. But okay, so back to the actual theoretical. Yeah. So just theoretically, for hypothetical, just something to talk about.
If Trump is right.
If he's right. Because again, to me, this one of the problems to me is that on the front end of it is we're being told there are no irregularities, there was no voter fraud, and this, that, and the other, which is false.
They said there was no widespread voter fraud.
On the scale, right? On a scale to change anything, okay, that's one thing, but the idea that it's not happening at all is false. But that's not, and while yes, the term widespread gets thrown out in the conversation, but at least in a kind of passing glance, which is what we are assuming that the general public is doing, they're getting told that there is no fraud. And it's like, well, there is fraud, which partially opens the door to conspiracy theory people anyway, but that's not the point either. The point being, okay, let's say it is happening. Let's say Trump is right, and that whatever evidence that he says he has and hasn't shown yet or whatever comes out, and it comes out that in states like Pennsylvania and Georgia and Nevada or Wisconsin, whatever the states that he's pushing for in, that it turns out there's enough, that there was some somebody hacked the voting machine and flipped a bunch of votes. Some group of people figured out how to push, a couple thousand people, dead people voted or whatever the specifics is. Let's say it happens and the numbers come out and it's like, okay, there's proof that this has happened. Then what? That's the hypothetical I'm trying to get to. Like, what if he is right? Because I think we're still in the inverse of the same problem.
I'm assuming there's a contingency in some place. Just like, for the president, I think they've got it going down like 10 or 15 fucking spots of just in case that person dies, just in case that next person dies too, and just in case that next person dies.
Nobody's dead here. It's the contingent.
No, I'm saying I believe there are contingencies
for a contested election.
If there is a contested election, what's the next recourse? Do we do a full recount or do we do just I don't think they would go back to do a revote, but that's assuming once you find the problem, you're able to at least correct or nullify some of those votes that were switched or whatever.
Right. But I guess my problem, my assumption in it would be, even if the Trump campaign and the people that are Trumpers and all that kind of stuff find and present the evidence, there's going to be a whole group of people that don't believe it anyway. Just like there's a whole group of people right now that are Trump supporters that don't believe this is what, what the reality is that Biden won the election pretty handily.
Trump literally started a division. I can't remember. It was the guy that he fired that was head of it. Because it pissed him off because he tweeted that, there was absolutely, no widespread fraud. This is one of the most secure elections we've had. And that was the head of, election security that I don't think we had in the last election. But Trump actually created this new department in whatever department it's under.
Right.
So, we literally have people that are dedicated to it. And, their main initial goal was to look, outside of the U.S. of, influence of, other countries, other players.
Right.
But they started looking inward as well because they realized, there's a lot of stupid shit that goes on within the U.S.
Right, and there's questions.
The same, American bot accounts that are just spamming shit at people on Twitter and whatnot.
Right.
Not to mention other, intelligence agencies throughout the world that would love to throw a little bit of doubt in America, sprinkle some more doubt in America.
Right. And again, I agree with that. And trying to stay within the hypothetical is, what if it flipped? Like, what if it actually does? What if the proof is there? Because if the proof is there and we switch it, I guess my thought process on it is that regardless of how the division started, there's going to be a whole group of people that don't believe the new truth, if it is truth, in the hypothetical. The same probably.
That's where you have to lay out the facts, and you don't go around just throwing out accusations. You have something to back it up, an actual proof that you can prove in a simplistic way. I agree. There will still be sections of America that don't believe it. Those are the same people that still believe the Earth is flat. You could talk to your blue in the face, and you're not going to convince them otherwise. Some people are just stubborn.
Right.
It's a human nature.
Right, I agree. I don't know. It was something I thought would have been a fun thought experiment. Nothing specific about it, but
I don't think that's a fun thought experiment.
I think it's a fun thought experiment. I think it's
illogical.
Why is it illogical?
I think it's already been proven that any recounts that they've talked about that have been done in states. Wisconsin was one they did, 2014 maybe, and they literally found like a little over 100 votes that would have gotten changed.
Right.
And there are races, that have come down to less.
The Gore Bush in Florida was
right.
And that was a contested, and
right.
It was Gore, and
that
then
was
it was
a
Bush.
single state that was being contested.
So it's
Where
not
this time. It was
multiple
they just
states,
started
multiple
random
jurisdictions. Right. I get it. I'm not saying it's logical that it did happen, but obviously it's possible that it could happen.
I still don't say how you can say there's voter fraud just because you lost, but then Republicans still gained seats in the House and Senate.
That is one that to me is, regardless of the fraud part of the conversation, that is just an interesting overall political conversation, in that there were enough diehard Republicans that didn't vote for Trump. Is really what it comes down to. Is that, and even some independent voters.
I think he did turn off a lot of, not really old school, but kind of more traditional Republicans. I mean, Trump has kind of brought into a new age of kind of Republican and conservatism.
Right. Or you have a bunch of independent voters that maybe lean conservative but couldn't vote for Trump. I mean, that to me is interesting, just kind of looking at that. Because, I mean, and even that, though, the House got closer.
Yeah.
The Democrats' lead in the House shrank. The Republicans' lead in the Senate shrank. And then the president did what the president did.
Right. And it's still yet to be seen what's going to happen in the Senate.
Right.
You still got the runoff
the runoff in Georgia is going to be... I'd be curious to see what kind of money's happening right now in Georgia. Like how much money is being spent in Georgia. It's probably obnoxious.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Marsha Blackburn had put out some kind of post that was, backing the two Republican candidates. It's like, why are you trying to swing around with that? Like,
they all do it.
You don't live there. I know they all do.
I mean,
I know they're all, just getting behind whoever they can to help whoever they can.
Well, I mean, and I guess realistically, yeah, she's not a resident there.
What helps them helps you.
Right. If it's another red chair helps her agenda.
I mean, if she's got enough Facebook and Twitter followers that she can get her voice out.
Right.
We are a neighbor to that state.
We stole their river. They can suck it. But I think it's gonna be. I don't know. I'm not as.
I read an interesting article in talking about the voter fraud that there's some conservatives that worry in Georgia, of all this talk of voter fraud, if they're going to scare off a lot of conservatives from going to vote. If they're convinced, that elections are fraudulent, they're like, well, there's no point in me going to vote. The Democrats just going to change the vote and just do whatever the hell they want.
Maybe, but I mean, it's the same. I mean, I don't know. It's the same as it's been. I don't know. I that mindset would be that I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden because I live in Tennessee,
right?
And plenty of people in Tennessee voted for Joe Biden. And I agree that it's something that exists. The idea that you want to vote for somebody who has a chance.
I mean, Tennessee's been a pretty hardcore. I mean, I don't remember what the numbers were, comparatively, percentage wise. Let's say a number of people went there in hopes that maybe there were enough conservatives that got turned off by Trump. And
I mean, I think Matt Shears. I was talking to Matt Shears about it. He said, "Let me see if I can find it. We've got a bunch of conversation going back and forth." But I want to say he said on the presidential election they picked up like 6 points or 9 points, something like that. Biden did do 7 points better than Hillary. Is what he said.
I don't think Biden ever came to Tennessee. I think Pence came. I don't know if Trump ever did.
Well, I mean, the one of the debates was in Nashville.
That's right, yeah. But I mean, as far as actually stumping campaigning here, which that's one thing we've talked about before. There's so many flyover states that candidates never set foot in, never do any kind of rally. They want to go to the swing states.
Yeah,
where they think there's a better chance. If they're looking, they've only got so much time. They can do so many stops. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it's also kind of disheartening.
Right. What's the point?
It's like it's glad you're pretty certain you're going to win, but we'd still like to see you too. You probably could have picked up some more people here, maybe.
Right. I mean, it goes back into
an all or nothing state. I mean,
right, and it goes back into that whole. It goes back into the electoral college conversation, which I don't know.
And that's the main reason of why they do it. They're like.
Right, and I've enlisted in especially this go around and all the conversation we've had here, as well as different conversations in Facebook with people I've had, that I'm more open to the idea of getting rid of the electoral college. I still don't know how I feel about it. I mean, there is something to me, and I don't know if the electoral college necessarily corrects the issue either, but it goes back to what AC was saying about Wyoming has 2 senators. California has 2 senators. And it's like there is something important to me about the idea that there is equality between the states at the federal level, so that they can.
You also have 2 for Rhode Island, and that's our smallest state.
Right, but the point being that in the Senate there's equality between states. That every state has an equal voice in the Senate because every state has 2 senators.
Right.
And the House is then popularity or population relative. And so that the population is then representative. And so again, I don't know. And this is where I get lost in some of the different philosophies of the parties, is that and is probably more why I'm much stronger as a libertarian federally than state or locally, because I don't like the idea of California making decisions for me. I don't think it's okay that California has, I don't know, what do they have, like 20 fucking representatives in the House? They have
no idea.
They have a bunch, but they only have 2 senators. So at least in the Senate part of the conversation, we are equal to California in federal law.
I mean, how else do you represent the populace other than have your representation based upon the population?
What form of government do we work in the United States?
A representative.
Right. We're a republic, right?
Right.
And it's supposed to be that the states have equal power to each other, so that one state can't, a California or a Texas or a New York can't overpower a New York can't overpower a Rhode Island in federal decision making. But if it was a population conversation, then New York could absolutely overpower Rhode Island in decision making. And so the point of having the Senate the way it's set up is to kind of balance those two things, to say, yes, we do want the populace represented, but yes, small states should have a voice equal to large states, federally speaking.
I mean, you could make that same argument statewide. I mean, I'm sure Nashville and Memphis have more state representatives than, Sneedville or whatever.
Right, but we also have a state Senate that is
right.
That is representative, but I don't know how they break that down, actually.
Pretty sure it's the same. About equal. About equal as what we do on the federal.
Right.
The U.S. federal level.
But see, I don't think because I don't think each county has the same number of state senators as each other.
Break it up into regions, kind of, or districts.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be something we should probably. I got my yellow blue book over here. It might answer some of those questions. I need to get in there.
But I'm assuming they would do that similarly. I mean, if that's the way we set up the federal government, I'm assuming that's also the way we would have set up our state federal governments.
Right. I'm assuming it's the same thing. I agree. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying, I don't know the answer to that. But again, the point being, but it's still different in that sense because the state, I don't know.
Well, that's where you still got people in Nashville, or you can make the argument that people in Nashville and Memphis are making, decisions that affect people in, Bean Station.
Well, it goes to something that, Max was saying. It's like, like you go to, like, I don't remember if I shared the article on that. Apparently, there is an active petition for like 60-something counties in Oregon to secede and be absorbed by Idaho.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and it's basically...
There's a section of Texas that talked about seceding for a long time.
And it's like they don't want to secede from the Union. They just don't want to be part of Oregon because Portland does everything.
Yeah.
So statewide, whatever Portland says goes. And there's a bunch of rural counties, especially out in eastern Oregon, which already borders Idaho,
right,
that are like, yeah, that's fine. Do what you want, Portland, but we want to be part of Idaho. And apparently it's actually getting some traction more recently with all the shit going on right now because rural parts of Oregon are having to deal with some of the regulation setup that's going on in Portland right now that they don't mesh at all with, the rural lifestyle of Western Oregon or Eastern Oregon, excuse me. Yeah. And so but apparently it's like half the state. Like there's a map of it and like Portland's up in the top, the northwest corner. And so, all of the southern counties that go along the California border, all the way to the coast. And so, one of the pitches that the group that's putting this together is trying to do is Idaho, it'll make you, it'll give you beachfront property. It'll make Idaho have Pacific Coast access as a state. So it's interesting. I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about because, again, like you're saying, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Memphis swing a lot of weight, legally speaking, right, on state level decisions, where if you're out in, Kingston.
And I get the argument, that big populous states like California, Texas, New York, the major cities, I guess the cities are holding a little bit, I hate calling it power. It's not really power, but it still goes back to the fundamental of one person, one vote. Everybody's like, oh, you make control for, what we do out in the county. It's like, yeah, sorry, less people live out there, but it's still one person, one vote.
Right.
Now, I don't know how they think that the city's being weighted. I mean, there's more people there, of course. There's more votes there.
Right, but I guess the point is that it's not...
It's a different lifestyle. I can see that. I guess I'd have to look into see, what some of these, controversial laws that people are really flipping their shit about.
Right. I mean, that's a valid thing. I learned on a podcast today that in the state of Tennessee, you're not allowed to hold public office in the state of Tennessee if you don't believe in the afterlife. It's a fact.
You're fucking kidding me.
Nope.
That is ridiculous.
I mean, it's one of those old laws that nobody pays attention to, but it's still on the books.
Okay.
And then there's apparently state of Tennessee also has, I can't remember what it was. I meant to, it was so perfect and hilarious. I meant to actually take notes on what the specifics were. There's another one there's a certain number of duels you could be in, and after a certain number of duels,
still be considered a gentleman.
Right, you couldn't hold public office after like 7 duels or something like that. So I mean that's fun. Like,
if you live through 7 duels,
didn't we talk about that?
I'm sorry, you're too much of a badass. We don't want you. You need to join the army. If you pass 7 duels, join the fucking army.
Didn't we talk about doing that as a thing on the show, like every week?
Dueling? I don't think so.
No, but every week we'd be like, go find a random law.
What do we?
It was something like that. We were talking about like every week.
Yeah, it was. I think it was find a random law.
Everybody could find a random law, and if we get a lull in the show and we could throw it on the table, and it could be something to talk about. Yeah. And so I didn't intend to do my homework this week, but I did my homework this week. But
I still remember reading one years ago. I want to say it was a law here in Knoxville. I'm sure I probably said it before that you can't tie up your pet alligator to a lamppost.
I think Knoxville you can't spit on the sidewalk either.
Yeah, I think that's one.
Yeah,
I do that all the time.
Yeah. I'm next time I have a candidate in here, I'm going to ask them if they believe in the afterlife.
They're like, really? All right, you've heard it here, folks. This person is no longer in office. They must be invalidated.
I mean, again, just hypothetically, I wonder what would happen if somebody actually brought it up. That's an issue. But like, they're not a valid candidate.
No, maybe there's something after that they would then still have to be voted out. That only maybe brings them up to be thrown out. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it also is going to. I mean, that becomes a matter of prove it. Well, you said it that one time on tape. Yeah, but I was just talking. Just talking to a guy. That's not what I believe. It was just I just said I don't believe in the afterlife. But it was interesting though, is the way it's worded. Is it starts out a very Judeo-Christian version of it, but as the legalese continues, because the podcast read the law, and it started off a very Judeo-Christian version of it, but then followed it with, or at least some version of life after death, basically.
Is it Judaism that doesn't believe in hell?
Heaven or hell.
Heaven or hell.
Right.
Okay. I was thinking it might have been they didn't believe in heaven as well. I was like, well, maybe it's just hell.
I can't remember the specifics of it. I'm not a Jew, so I've not. That is something I kind of wish I would have done in school. I would have done like a religious studies class just for.
I did one at the community college. It was interesting. The survey of world religions.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about. I'd like to understand.
It's because you really start to see so many more similarities.
Right. Well, I mean, you have the
essentially, Judaism and Islam still go off the Old Testament. I mean, as well as Christianity. Christianity ventured into the New Testament. Islam went into
the books of Muhammad or whatever. The Torah? No, Torah's Jews.
The Quran.
The Quran, yeah, there you go. See, I didn't study it. He studied it, so don't get on me.
The Torah was essentially the Old Testament.
And so,
even within that, I mean, you've got the Gnostic Gospels, so many kind of books of the Bible.
Yeah, and then you get the Eastern ones that are more fun and exciting.
And so much older.
Yeah. And then the resurgence of the Norse legends and stuff like that recently. It's been a big thing since that Viking show came out.
I think there's was it Pastafarians? I think it's a semi-joke, but I think there's also people that take it seriously.
Is it like an Italian thing? Like they eat pasta and shit?
I think it is some kind of worship of grain, maybe. I'd have to look it up again. I think most people do it as a joke. But I mean, there's definitely some interesting religions out there. Some people just kind of come up. I mean, there was the crazy cult ones that people came up with.
I always get kind of bent out of shape every once in a while when I'm doing some ancient Egyptian documentaries or whatever. And essentially the Egyptian version of Satan, and even the root for the word Satan is the Egyptian god Set, which in most translations turns into Seth. So My parents named me after the devil.
Yeah, sure.
I'm also like
to say that to them.
Well, I think I'm like I think I'm Adam's great grandson. I'm named in the Bible. I can't remember, but it's somewhere there in Genesis. There's that whole section of Genesis where it's like, and Adam begot and begot and begot right. and begot. And so like I lived for 700 and something years, had a kid that was worth naming, and lived for 800 and something more years or something like that. I think it was like 1,200 something total years I lived, according to the Bible. So you're in for a long ride, bitches. Be here for a while.
But I mean, it's interesting if you look at some like the old like Greek legends, and some of those were, you had floods and just kind of natural disasters, and some of those stories, were probably oral traditions that got passed down that, some people adopted those same stories and kind of made it their own to kind of incorporate into their religion.
Yeah, doesn't the what was it, the Bhagavad Gita? I always say it wrong.
Bhagavad Gita or something like that.
Isn't that like that's a?
I believe that is Hindu.
But isn't that kind of like one like their oral tradition written? I think it's in there. I think there's a great flood in that story too, somewhere in there.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean,
yeah,
it's I think it's Indus River Valley in India. So I mean, I'm sure they get fucking monsoons every year. So I mean, I'm sure there's probably many flood stories, and probably terrible flood stories.
Yeah, but I want to say that like 8 out of the 10 like not major religions, but like long-standing running religions or whatever have like a major have a Moses and the flood story. Not Moses. Is it Moses? No, Noah.
Yeah.
Have a version of the long flood destroyed the world story somewhere. Everybody does. I always find that interesting. I mean, it makes sense.
Did you ever watch that one video? I think I sent it to you. It was what's his name? Malcolm Gladwell was doing the story on David and Goliath, and kind of did like a logical kind of interpretation of it.
I don't know if I've the video specifically, but I do.
He's doing like a little talk. It was really interesting how they figured, the Goliath, was probably somebody with, what we know of as gigantism,
right,
a deformity, where you're growing really tall, which also makes them nearsighted. Because I guess in the story, he's telling David to come closer, and he's like, well, it's probably because he couldn't really see him,
right.
And that, David's always kind of portrayed as, or everybody talks about, David and Goliath, a great thing against, a really meek and
right.
not so mighty person. They're like, but, the slingers were actually, modern day like snipers almost.
Right.
And they're like, somebody with the rock in their hand, a sling, could probably hurl, a perfectly round rock at 100 miles an hour. He's like, if he can hit him between the eyes and kill him right away, like, this wasn't exactly, what we would consider a David and Goliath story.
Right. It's not me fighting Mike Tyson, which is happening right now. Not me, but...
It's kind of interesting. I mean, they kind of like look back and you think about, what Goliath could have been if you kind of interpret it.
Right. Well, I mean,
and it was commonplace back then. A lot of times, a lot of battles would come together, and sometimes they would send
their best against
their
each
best
other,
warrior. Right. And for
this the logical history of the Cyclops, right?
I think I've heard it before, but go ahead.
The traditional Cyclops is a giant one-eyed humanoid or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And they think it was an elephant or a mammoth skull because the nasal cavity, because elephants' eyes are teeny tiny, but the nasal cavity is huge and it's right in the center. And when you see an elephant skull, it's similar to a human skull in general shape, but it is not. But it has a big, huge nasal cavity, and their eyes are so small, and their ears are so their actual ear canal is super tiny, so it's hard to see it on the skull, like their actual ear canal, and so you don't recognize that there's ears there, and the small holes that are kind of further back in the head on the elephant, you assume are their ear holes, and so they just have this one big hole in the front of the face, and so they thought that was a giant one-eyed person.
You'd be like, oh, it was just somebody with an eye patch.
Not that kind of Cyclops.
Called him Cyclops.
But yeah, random history stuff. So, how much do you think cases are going to further spike in about a week and a half?
I think it's going to go up, for at least until the new year. I mean, just about every state is more cases than they've ever seen this entire
Right.
year.
And I was thinking about the day while I was working, and I found it interesting because Max had mentioned you go into Walmart anymore. They have both doors open again. They're not restricting you to one entrance and stuff like that. All the grocery stores I go into, they used to have a cart cleaner for like over the summer. They had
I still see some
a person out there like spraying carts with bleach or whatever and wiping them off, and they have somebody up there with this like Whole Foods still does. They have a guy up there that if you're working, they'll scan you on the way in.
Yeah.
But for regular people, they have masks if they need a mask, and hand sanitizer and stuff like that all available if they need it and stuff like that. But other than Whole Foods, nobody's doing it anymore like they were.
I mean, one admiral, I can't remember what his exact position is in the White House. It's like the Navy. It's like almost head of like some kind of medical field. But he came out and said, a lot of the spikes that we're seeing is just due to COVID fatigue or quarantine fatigue, basically.
Right.
That people are pretty much getting over it, and a lot of lawmakers will come out and said it like, yeah, we want to put, we need to put more implementation of some more safety measures. They're like, but I don't think people are going to stand for it.
Right.
Let alone even follow it.
Well, and what's interesting too is like on the way back from the hunting trip, I was sitting in on the Board of Health meeting Monday here in Knox County, and I was watching it, and Randy Burleson who's at least locally the largest restaurateur, I think.
Yeah.
And he was, kind of on there, throwing a pitch out, be like, I'm big and I'm struggling. So I can't imagine what these other smaller restaurants are doing. And we're doing everything you guys are asking us to do. We're trying our hardest. We're half the dining room. We've got every other tables taped off so people can't sit at it. None of my staff has tested positive, this, that, and the other. That's not true. He said he had like one guy. But anyway, the doctor, I think it was Dr. O'Brien was talking to him, was asking him some questions talking about it. And Dr. O'Brien flat said, it's not about you guys. It's not what you guys are and aren't doing. It's what your customers are and aren't doing.
All right.
It's a lot of people are coming together
at the restaurant
that aren't together otherwise at your restaurant.
Right.
And there's something about 15 minutes, he said too, which I thought was interesting. It's sitting down at a table eating dinner without a mask on. And it's the number one place where people are spending more than 15 minutes without a mask on within distance of each other.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is I found the 15-minute part interesting.
Well, that's what I read that a lot of the schools are doing. A lot of teachers had that issue with, and, some teachers, of course, are better at it, and some of them had just been kind of going off that literally. If they were working with a student, they would have little timers, set to go off every 15 minutes, and they would walk away from it for a minute, and then, go back to, if they were giving them, like one-on-one kind of tutoring, just so they weren't exceeding that 15 minutes. And I think they changed it to like 15 minutes within like a 1 hour period.
Right. And so, I guess, the assumption is that I guess what with the other restrictions in place and that statement, what I pick up off that, and maybe I'm an idiot, which I probably am, is that the viral load has to be fairly significant to transfer. Is what it sounds like to me, because if you have it, it's not like spewing out of your mouth every time you talk. It's just a little bit. It takes time. It takes time and exposure for it to work. Just exposure is not going to necessarily transfer it.
Time just increases, essentially, especially depending on if the air is moving around or not. That just increases the more virus particles that are in the air.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So that it's not like one virus is going to fly. It's one virus landing in your face is not going to do it. It's got to take many.
Right,
is what I interpret from that, which I could be totally wrong. It could just be that 15 minutes gives one virus more time to make its way to your face, as opposed to all the millions of other directions it could go in the process or whatever. I'm not, right. But there's a lot of
crazy variables. That go into it. They go around in droplets. If that droplet's lost a little bit of water, that virus could be a little bit weaker, just because it's been in the air that much longer and exposed to not warm, humid.
Right. Or if you're outside, the UV kills it pretty quickly or whatever.
No, you got to put that under your skin to kill it. You got to do UV lights under your skin. That kills it.
That's a thing. It actually does exist. Yeah. But it doesn't make Trump right for saying it. I'm just saying that there's a thing that does exist, that they do that.
Yeah, for sanitizing. I don't know as far as it killing COVID
I don't
viruses.
know. Right. I don't know if it has anything to do with
Pretty sure
COVID.
they use UV lights to kill like bacteria, because they use UV lights to They have it for like water filtration systems. You can buy UV filters.
Well, there's something about like it's an actual like ingestible for people that's been developed for something specifically, not coronavirus. That is a internal UV system. Something.
Okay. I encourage you to look into that.
I have to find it, but it's a real thing. Forgot where I was going.
Restaurants.
Oh yeah, and so I mean, I don't know. It's one of those as in being in the small business game and stuff like that. It's like, so I get it. You know, I understand the social need to try to control the spread of the virus and all that kind of stuff. But it's like you're putting the restrictions on the person that isn't the problem. It's like, I'm trying to think of I've been trying to think of an analogy for a while, and I just can't quite place a solid analogy for it. It's like, you know, like I don't know, like I don't know. It's almost like, you know, blaming the Gap for the mini skirt that the girl got raped in. It's a terrible analogy. It's just the best that's coming off the top of my head. So please don't shit on me for that analogy. I'm trying to work my way to what it is. It's because it's not the Gap's fault that the skirt is short. Well, I mean, it is that the skirt is short, but it's not the Gap. It's not the clothes maker's fault that a thing happened in their clothes.
Right.
You know, but and the clothes maker is not the one paying the cost for the criminal activity. It's the criminal that pays for the criminal activity. Where this one is, you know, the restaurants aren't doing anything wrong. They're doing everything they can to do it as right as possible, but they're still getting punished for it.
And I think most are. I think there's also a good number that are just half-assing it, like
Sure.
a lot of people.
Sure.
Like, you should wear a mask, and they wear it on the chin.
Right, and I'm not. And,
I'll put a mask on.
And again, going back to what, but that was what I took from Dr. O'Brien's statement, and around that, and I should go back and pull it up, and I pull it up and play it for you guys, but I didn't. But it was, you know, he was like, it's not about you guys and what you guys are doing. It's about who's going there and sitting down together. Right. And it's like, well, we can't control that. And I mean, literally, you get the new mandates in place as it moved from 11 to 10 for in store, like in restaurant service. Mm-hmm. It stayed at half capacity. They were going to bring it down to 25, but they left it at 50%. But they limited the table size to 6
of people not living
together.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, there's only 4 that live in this house, so we can go wherever we want. But, you know, if you're some Catholic family that's got 10 kids, you can all 12 sit together in a restaurant because you live together.
I want to say it was a couple of months ago. I went to one Italian restaurant, and they actually had like that little questionnaire, almost like you're going to the doctor's office. Like, have you had a fever in the past 48 hours? You know, I don't.
Total.
Hopefully, they didn't use the word diarrhea right before, you know, sitting you down at a table. But, you know, I think they ask if you've had any, you know, stomach problems in the past 48 hours. Whereas most people, if they want to eat, you know, just be like, no. Right. Yeah, but they're at least trying to make the effort of like, and like maybe just encouraging people to like to think about this. Like, hey, you know, have you had a fever in the past couple days? Like, should you really be sitting down and eating here right now?
Right. I'd be curious to see how many people say at some point, okay, you're right, and leave. Right. But nonetheless, it's an effort, and that's a start. But again, it's the punishment is the right word because they've added. I don't know if it's officially added yet, but I think it's officially added that you can lose your liquor license if you're in violation of the different things. They never
put that in because they said they found like, you know, they cited 4 bars weekend before last, or no, it was this last weekend. But they said nothing ever became of it because they said, you know, they complied and, you know, were able to not have any issues. No, they didn't get a fine. I don't even think they got cited. They may have just been given like some little BS like warning letter.
Right, it was a citation of some sort, but what it entailed was right. Unclear, at least in the article side of it.
Like, I don't know if the cops stuck around until, you know, everybody left, or they came in and were like, hey, you guys need to shut this down, and then left. And then, you know, maybe drove back by 30 minutes later and looked to see if there were still cars in the parking lot. But, I mean, I heard many rumors of, you know, bars and places that were staying open later beyond right. it, just because the owners were like, you know what, fuck it, what are they going to do?
Right.
Just because they thought there was no repercussion to it.
Right.
There was no teeth to it.
But again, it's still the same premise of you're punishing the bar owner for the actions of his guests. And in my opinion, at least, it's not the business owner's responsibility.
Do you have a better idea
to police the individual?
I'm sure the city council would love to hear it.
I don't know. I don't have a better idea, but I don't. To say I don't have a better one means it doesn't make this one good.
I don't think it makes it bad either.
I mean, I think it does in the sense that we're too busy trying to at least soft police the situation instead of like actually educate.
We've tried to educate.
Okay. Then at some point
nobody wants to listen. I mean, part of it was just due to mixed messaging for months and months. Some of it by the asshole that's in the fucking White House right now. A lot of it was to him because people take him at his word.
Right.
And that's who we listen to. But, that was a great thing. We had a fucking coronavirus task force. We had, actual scientists, and epidemiologists in there. They were able to tell us the true science behind it.
Well, and lied to us about it too.
Do you think we could,
whatever.
put bleach in ourselves? You think that would work? Oh, I was just joking.
But don't bother wearing a mask because you wouldn't put it on right anyway. And it's not really going to do any good.
Who said this?
Fauci.
When?
Right in February, March. And then over the summer he said, no, I flat lied to you guys about that because I didn't want you guys to go hoard them all. It
wasn't summertime.
When did he come out and say it? Clarify.
I think it was a couple months later. But he was quoted
April, May.
He was quoted in March as saying, "Yes, masks do help."
Okay, so even the
CDC came out early on.
The fat orange guy is the only guy who screwed up the messaging. The science guys were always clear and honest with it.
When has Trump ever changed his story, though?
That's not what we're talking about. You're talking about the mixed messaging. No, we're talking about mixed messaging of all the different shits going on.
They've come out and said that we were wrong.
Okay, so we're supposed to...
They came out and admitted they were wrong. When has Trump ever fucking admitted he's wrong?
Probably never. I'm sure once.
Okay.
I mean, he did go through a bankruptcy. That's a mission of failure at some point, some level.
He didn't see it that way.
He probably didn't.
He saw, he's like, I got rid of debt. Ha ha. I know how to game the system. Ha ha. See, I'm a smart businessman. I know how to go bankrupt and not lose money.
I mean, anyway, I'm not going down that road, but... Yeah. Point being, the reason they call it a novel virus, it was literally a new virus. I get it.
That we were still learning of rapidly. And yes, the CDC came out and said they were wrong. I mean, it didn't help much with the mask shortage because people still went apeshit for fucking masks and people were hoarding the masks.
Right, but it wasn't that they were wrong. That's my point, though. It wasn't
they were wrong in encouraging it, yes. But they came out and explicitly said that they didn't push masks because they were worried about the actual stockpile of it.
Right. Which really just says we think you're dumb, and we're probably right.
It's not saying we think you're dumb.
We think you're too stupid to actually listen to us.
Human nature, you scare the shit out of people, everybody's going to go fucking wild. Because even when we told them, because even the intelligent people, as soon as I knew it was a fucking virus, they were like, mask is probably going to fucking help. Asians have been doing it for decades. They don't have a problem with the flu season because they're like, hey, flu season rolls around just about everybody. You see videos of it constantly. Of most people walking around in a crowded street.
Going back to the show, I was watching that We Are Champion show, and they had the yo-yo thing, and there was a Japanese kid there, and this was back in like 2017, and he's wearing a mask. And I was like, hey, that kid looks right. Everybody else is doing their shit wrong.
A communicable disease. How the fuck you think it gets spread?
Right. My point is that so the dumb people that listen to what they're told, how many times do they get lied to and say, okay, I don't care. I acknowledge and I appreciate the admission of, hey, we fucked up. But it wasn't we fucked up because we didn't know better. It's we fucked up because you're stupid. We fucked up.
No, you're looking at it fucking wrong. It's not because they didn't do it because people are fucking stupid.
Okay. Then why did they do it? They did it because we're going to react in an illogical manner and stockpile masks.
That's not being
because we don't need to.
That's not being stupid though.
Okay. What would you call that exactly?
Fearful? People are self-preserving?
Self-preservative?
Self-preservatives.
No preservatives. Emotional?
You can say that. I mean, they knew it was a stressful time already.
Okay, fine. And I'm looking at it wrong. I take that as you're dumb, and you're going to listen to what I tell you to do. And then when I admit that I lied to you before, you're going to listen to me this time, though, too. That's my issue with it. And maybe I'm dumber than the average mass, or maybe I'm smarter than the average mass that we make fun of all the time on the show. But that's my take on it. My take on it is you lied to me because you thought I was dumb. You thought I was going to act irrationally. You thought I couldn't say, that's the word but we were probably both looking for, act irrationally. You couldn't say, hey guys, listen, here's the deal. This is what's happening. This is communicable disease. We only have so many masks. We need to make sure that our doctors and nurses and this, that, and the other.
I'm sure they were saying that in March.
You know, you guys.
So it was maybe like a 2-week time frame.
We're closing down the economy. You guys get to stay home. Don't worry about it. Just stay home. Take it easy. Chill out. We'll figure out a way to get masks available to everybody. But don't go out and buy all the masks. We need to save these masks for the people that have to be in it. If you don't have to be in it, don't buy it. Because they can't say that to us because we're dumb and we're going to act irrationally and we're going to go buy up every mask we can get our hands on.
Right.
And then the first responders and people have to be wearing their trash bags.
All what happened with fucking toilet paper.
Right.
Nuts for toilet paper, like they were going to run out and there was going to be any toilet paper left in the world.
Tom Green had the best take on it, in my opinion.
Okay.
Tom Green's like, toilet paper's big. Just big. Like, it just is.
Right.
And so when you're walking down the toilet paper towel aisle and the 10 people before you all grabbed one of the big things of toilet paper, the shelves look empty. And so, all right, there's something going on out here. We started hearing about there's something kind of weird going on. And maybe somebody bought an extra pack or two of toilet paper that they wouldn't have normally bought or whatever. But the next person down the aisle saw that the aisle was like almost out. So they grabbed one. And then, 5 people later, there's no toilet paper left because there's only like 20 boxes of toilet paper on the shelf anyway because they're so damn big.
It was crazy. Like the plumbers were getting inundated with calls for
bidets.
Bidets to be installed.
I mean, as Max has proven, there's plenty of other things you can wipe your ass with.
Yeah. They have washable diapers for children.
Right. And I mean, I've got enough bar t-shirts in my life that I could go probably 6 months without toilet paper and not wash any of it, just cut them up and throw them away.
Right.
I've got so many Jack Daniels and Miller Lite t-shirts that I've accumulated, and for some reason I can't bring myself to throw away.
Right.
I mean, hell, I think we took a whole trash bag, like a big 50-gallon trash bag of t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
And I still got probably 100 of them. But yeah, I don't understand. Again, irrational. You're right. It's irrational. It was totally irrational, the toilet paper run thing. It was craziness. Especially as I'm just trying to buy a pack for work, so I have some for my customers.
Right. But I mean, we've also done that over fucking Tickle Me Elbow.
Right, but nobody's dying over that. But again, my point...
People died over that.
That's true.
They got trampled, and I'm sure people got shot and stabbed just so they can get their Tickle Me Elmo for their kid.
Well, you look into your child's eyes and say, no, I couldn't get you one, Timmy.
But no, I mean, I'm definitely, and as well as, most health experts are, worried of what is going to happen. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that got together for Thanksgiving. We're still in the holidays. They're saying, just with the colder temperature in general, people are inside more, so people are going to be clustered together a little bit more often.
Right. My parents
are trying to open back up.
My parents were adamant about not hanging out.
Yeah.
And it was disappointing, but it's okay. I respect that. It's fine. So I don't know. I mean, it's
a still crazy, scary time. I mean, it's an unknown thing you can't see, so you don't really know.
Right. Honestly, I'm operating off the assumption that I've already had it. I can't imagine that I didn't. Well, I guess let me put it this way. And again, this is me not knowing shit. With as easy as it is to transfer, and the amount of exposure that I have because I'm essential, I can't imagine that I didn't get it yet.
Yeah. I remember I read an interesting stat, and I want to say it was L.A. County or L.A. Metropolitan. They estimated that 1 in every 137 people. And I wish I could remember it was either currently is infected, would be currently positive for the virus, or they've said, since then, an average of, 1 in every 137 people, has had the virus.
Right.
And it's crazy when you think about those numbers, 137 people,
that's not many people.
That's 20 houses if you think about a 5-person household.
Right. That's not many people at all.
Yeah. That's the one thing they've said, even in the beginning, they said all these numbers of coming out, they said, realistically, you're looking at probably 5 to 10 times that number of it being realistic, because there's that many people out there that aren't getting tested or aren't able to go get a test.
Right. I mean, I thought about I was in a Kroger today, and they said they've got a rapid antibody test at their pharmacy now.
Yeah, I've seen it at CVS's. They've got a big thing, COVID test in the drive-thru. But I wonder what kind of test is it? Because I think PCR is supposed to be the most reliable test. I mean, the antibody test is pretty much just telling you you've got antibodies, which could mean you've just had it at some point, and you've still got antibodies in your system.
Right.
I mean, it could also be telling you that you currently have it. Like, I'm sure if that came back positive, it would probably tell you, maybe depending upon the, I don't know if it gives you a percentage of how many antibodies actually show up, or if it just shows positivity for antibodies. But they may tell you, like, hey, you should probably go get a test. You're showing up for antibodies, which could mean you may possibly have it right now.
Right. Just for reference, everybody, even though it's too late, the health department will not be conducting tests on Thanksgiving or Black Friday.
Sorry you missed it.
Yeah, sorry you missed it, everybody. I'm not surprised it didn't do it, but anyway, I'm trying to get on the health department site. I
hate shitting on our government. I still think we could have done a lot of things better. I mean, we still don't have very good testing procedures. I mean, I was reading today that even our national stockpile that we've was depleted already. Trump liked to say the cupboards were bare whenever he came in, but it's a fucking lie. But it's not the point. I mean, even we tried to ramp back up because no one really talked about our national stockpile. We ended up finding masks that were 5 and 10 years old because nobody was rotating that stock like most people that deal with any kind of stock know to fucking do.
Right.
Because it's fucking paper, and paper will turn to dust after so long. I mean, even now, our national stockpile is not what it should be anyway.
Right.
I mean, because now we're essentially at another super high demand for it. When we're seeing, record cases. I think the local hospitals in East Tennessee were averaging 98 to 95% capacity. And that's what, most health professionals fear is. It's not just being inundated with just COVID patients. It's still being able to deal with the general public of people having heart attacks, having strokes, broken legs, car accidents, and the list keeps going down.
Yeah.
So honestly, I heard a couple days ago that even some hospitals in East Tennessee have had to start sending patients to other surrounding areas. When you start looking at some of so many hospitals, per square mile, where you've got people traveling even extra further, having to go to a big city when that big city's already inundated, but they're also trying to bring in, a 200 surrounding radius.
Right, like those people that got picked up in the North Star while we were sitting in traffic on the way back.
Yeah.
So it says here, WAT, I don't know when this came on. This article was listed on the 28th, so
today,
earlier today.
I know what day it is.
18,000 Knox County residents, 18,000 confirmed Knox County cases since the beginning of the pandemic. So it's 50,000 would be 10%, so it's 4% of the population has been confirmed. And what did you say the guy said to assume twice the many?
5 to 10.
5 to 10 times, so 5%, so 25 to 50% of the county has probably had it at this point, is what they're saying. And we're still...
How fast it spreads? I mean, that's not...
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. But herd immunity is at 60%?
I don't know what's considered herd immunity as far as percentage-wise.
I want to say I heard it was in the 16% range. It wasn't... Because I remember hearing it thinking that was way low. It would be 80 or 90%?
Right. That's really to prove that herd immunity does not work.
That's what I'm trying to figure out is at what point, vaccine or not, how many people need to take the vaccine for it to matter?
Right.
Everybody? Okay, well then we're at 100% herd immunity, and then we can't keep passing it around? I don't know. I mean, again, going back into it, it would have been awful, and I would have pitched a fit, and I would have cried about it, and it would have been one of those unprovable. There's no anti-argument. What's it called? I can't remember the phrase for it. But what should have happened in hindsight, I think, back in March, it should have been: here's your stimulus check. You have 1 week. At the end of this week, we're full on lockdown. Nobody leaves your house for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. If that's truly what could have worked, which is what people are saying could have worked, and there are people that were saying that back then.
Yeah, there's some countries that have done. They've done essentially really short term, hardcore lockdowns. It's
Right.
like, hey, the numbers look really fucking shitty right now, and we're a few days behind in testing as it is. So whatever we've tested positive today, or people that tested positive 3 and 4 days ago, they don't know they're positive, so they've still been walking around thinking maybe they had it. I mean, you're supposed to quarantine when awaiting your results back.
I guess the problem being,
people don't.
well, I mean, I had an acquaintance that ended up 24 days because it took like 8 days for them to get the test back, and then the solid 2 weeks, and then it came up to a weekend or something like that. So there's 24 days where they didn't leave the house.
Yeah.
Because that was what was suggested. But I guess even in that version of it, we would have had to close any sort of border. We would have had complete border control to boot.
Right? Canada kicked us off.
I'm just saying.
They're like, you're not coming in.
Well, I'm just saying if
your hockey players, you can come in if you want to get in the bubble.
I'm just saying that if you had completely shut down for 14 days, which would have killed the spread, theoretically, then you could not have a new introduction. And the only way you could not have a new introduction is to have somebody from outside come in and reintroduce it, and then we'd have to do it again. So that wouldn't work. Never mind. I take it back. There's no way. There's no functional way we could have done that, and it succeeded.
Got a complete 100% lockdown now. So, I mean, you still got to have, gas stations running, or at least, some gas stations running to still be able to gas up ambulances, police cars. And
you can go to a gas station, just put your credit card in. They don't need to be open.
True, I guess. Somebody said still got to come in and print the reports. I'm sure there's ways around it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm pretty sure Wagner's
still got to have
figure that
some
out.
things.
Pilot, whoever's got the contract. I mean, hell, any of those that they have contracts with.
I mean, nurses still are going to want to be able to stop in somewhere and get some coffee. I mean, not necessarily, but
I mean, so inconvenience.
You got to have some things open.
So we have to. We can't inconvenience the first responders to while we're all inconvenienced with the shutdown.
I mean, them being able to stop and get a cup of coffee is a bad example. I mean, they're having to be out and about.
I mean, we're talking about a full-on 100% martial law, you can't leave your fucking house situation, which I'm not down with anyway.
I think China did it, but they also were bringing everybody food. Whether they actually fed everybody is,
Yeah, be clear, they said they were bringing everybody food.
But I'm pretty sure Italy was doing that. They pretty much did a hardcore lockdown. I think they allowed restaurants to be open and for just delivery only.
I mean, that doesn't make sense.
I think one of the latest Germany was doing, you couldn't have more than one person in a household out at a time, and they could only be going for groceries.
But somebody has to work in the grocery store. Because that's what I'm saying, like the way we did it doesn't make sense to me. Because one, all it did was concentrate people into a handful of specific locations, hardware stores and grocery stores and pharmacies.
Well, I mean, the hardware stores is the case in point of just people being, I don't want to use your term of being stupid, but being irrational.
Well, no, it's something to do with your. I mean, if you're locked in the house, it's something to do. Or more importantly,
something to do, but it's
essentially,
an essential. We're already doing soft policing, and they're like, please limit to non-essential travel. And we're like, well, I'm gonna go get some flowers.
Right. Well, I mean,
in the garden. Like, I totally understand there. I mean, it's springtime. You want to be planting your flowers, but we're asking people not to go out unless you really need to.
Right. And it'd be like essential would be you need some JB weld or something to put or some liquid plumber or something like that because you're having plumbing issues.
Right.
And it's essential that you have running water because you're locked in your house for 2 weeks. It's not essential that you're planting a garden.
Right. Some of it was just people getting stimulus checks that they weren't having to drive.
And that's still another issue to me. I don't know how this is. I don't know how this is all going to play out. I was reading today that they're still stalling around on another stimulus bill, and the headline was something about stalling on a stimulus bill as the financial cliff. Like a lot of people are on a financial or benefits cliff or something like that. Where
there's many stories out of food banks that are just getting inundated.
I don't know what to do. I mean,
that just shows you the people. I mean, those are people that were already using the food bank, and that crowd is growing even more and more. I mean, it just goes to point out, how much of the living poor we really have in the U.S. that just go unnoticed. That people are just like, no, most people are able to, go to the grocery store and buy food. No, a lot of people fucking can't do that.
Well, they sure as shit can't do it if they're not working and they're not getting money otherwise. I mean, that's what I don't understand. That's what I don't get. Like, I I mean, I guess it clarifies AC's point is they're not. I mean, and mine as well is they're not working for us at all. I don't give. They're like I mean, Trump's as guilty as Pelosi and McConnell and all of them together. There is no fucking way that you can rationalize why there's not been another stimulus put out.
A lot of it's just infighting.
Right, it's politics bullshit. Right, and it's who gets the credit.
Trump would say, it's the business game. You do a high bid, so the other person will lowball you, so you can find, some kind of meeting around the middle. That way, both sides feel like they won something.
Right. Well, but it's even not even the one we had was a fuck you to me and you. I mean, the one they gave us in the first place was a fuck you. They didn't. I mean, that didn't give a shit about us either. And even if we're going to pretend to believe for a second that they thought this was going to be a short-term thing, this wasn't going to be a year of bullshit. Even if we assume that they thought this was okay, this is a big deal, but it's not going to be a long-term big deal. It's going to be a couple months, and we're going to get through this. That $1,200 check was a joke. That $1,200 check of the something $1 trillion spent on the entire bill that bailed out banks. And they're not bailed out banks, but supported banks and supported some of these other gross big businesses that they did. The amount of money
in 2008?
No, the 2020, the CARES Act.
Okay, I thought you were talking about bailing out the banks back in 2008. No. Sorry.
Same kind of bullshit, but yeah. I mean, I can't remember. I saw it somewhere, but I'd have to go look it up. But of the total spent on the CARES Act, like 20% was spent on me and you. Look over there. Look at the football game. Just watch the football game.
Fuck about the football game.
I'm asking you to watch the football game for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, you're done.
What, do you want to pause it? Did I miss it?
Yeah, you missed it. It was exciting play of the Cars.com commercial. This episode not brought to you by Cars.com. Anyway, what was I saying? My wife ran by naked. I was distracted. Oh. Jesus Christ.
Oh, sorry. I was like, let me look at the TV. I don't give a fuck about football.
Anyway,
talking about the CARES Act.
Oh yeah, like I want to say,
$100 was kind of slap in the face.
Right, and either directly spent on me and you as a citizen in actual cash in pocket of that $1,200 check. I think it was like $35 for my house or something like that, because I got me and her and the kids. Right. I think I got $500 per kid or something like that. That and then actual medical spending and logistics spending on making testing and masks and PPE and all that kind of shit available was like 20% of the total spend on that thing. And you ask yourself, where did the rest of it go? And that's a good question.
Well, I'm sure there was a lot of things that were kind of piggybacked onto as well to kind of placate.
I mean, there was $500 million to the Kennedy Center. I know that one. And that was a Pelosi sticking point. She had to get $500 million to the Kennedy Center for a remodel.
I saw a little.
That's important in the middle of a pandemic to make sure that we have a Kennedy Center on the other side.
I remember hearing a little about that. I don't remember what exactly was going on with that. But there was an article recently about it was like 2,000 California prison inmates that were somehow able to get some of the PPE loans.
The PPP?
PPP loans? The loans?
Yeah.
The loans.
I don't know.
And I'm like, wait. I mean, you hear, left and right of, all these people just committing, the PPP fraud. And a lot of people just took advantage of it. Just like a lot of people, commit tax fraud. And it kind of ties back into election fraud.
But realistically, even
people that will take advantage of it if they can see a small hole.
Even the small business, the PPP thing, which there definitely were a number of people that took advantage of it that didn't need to. That even that portion of it, all added up, that and the personal and the individual we're talking about is less than half.
Yeah, there came out a few stories of some big name companies
millions.
I'm not saying Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, got like $1 million. And once it came out,
this episode is not brought to you by Coca-Cola.
Yeah. But I mean, once that story came out, most of them started putting out their own press releases no, we actually, in hindsight, we've actually returned that money back to the federal government and said they gave it all back.
Right, but I mean, as I was saying, though, even that part of it was a fraction of the total spent. Even if you had that, fraud or not fraud, actually legitimate use of it or not.
Which a good chunk probably went to research and development, maybe a general kind of medical fund, There's a lot of talk recently about, with some of the contracts that we doled out for this were no bid contracts. And that's always been an issue within Congress in itself. It's like, wait, like why do we go into a contract and not take any other bids? Like something seems a little fishy about that.
All right, so this is MSN money. CARES Act sent you $1,200, but gave millionaires and billionaires far more. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but references for the family. Let's see if I can find it. 500 million Treasury to the U.S. An estimated $257 billion for the calendar years. Fuck.
You could for the Tennessee website. Should be in there somewhere.
I mean, apparently Tennessee's still holding on to some of their CARES Act money, and everybody's pissed off that they haven't spent it yet. Yeah, I was reading something about that, but how the CARES Act became a tax break bonanza for the rich. That's NPR. The anatomy of a $2 trillion COVID-19 stimulus bill. The visual capitalist. Hopefully this is a picture. All right. $2 trillion, $300 billion in cash payments, $260 billion in unemployment payments, $43.7 billion in student loans and others. That's 30% of the total. Large corporations got $425 billion loans for corporations, $25 billion in wage and benefits, $4 billion for wage and benefits. They went to specifically to what kind of $58 billion went to the airline industry, and it breaks that down. That's what I was reading off. Small businesses got $377 billion. State and local governments got $339 billion. Public services got $179 billion. So, to your and my pocket, $603 billion, and to public services, including hospitals, veterans health care, stockpiles, equipment, SNAP, drug access, child nutrition, XYZ, $179 billion. So, of the $2 trillion, a little under $800 billion of it went to things that make fucking sense. I mean, another $340 billion to local governments for COVID-19 response. So even that's 1.2 trillion of it. I mean, over 800 billion of it went to companies, to businesses, to survive.
Right. There's also been a lot of stories coming out recently. It's again, disheartening. A lot of doctors and healthcare workers that are just they're done. They're like, fuck this.
Well, I mean, part of that stupid ass shit. That's what you guys will hear this when I get the fucking epic edited down. But I mean, AC is talking about it in the nursing field. Is the way their contracts and shit work. They can't leave, or they can leave, or whatever. They have these traveling contracts put in place, and it's been a thing that's been around for years. It's like, hey, we have a certain situation here, we need help, right? And so they put bonus structure in place to bring in nurses and doctors to a community that needs help for a short period of time. We've joked about it all the time. AC went to New Jersey and he went to Nashville, and spent a couple weeks there and got paid like twice as much for doing it. But he didn't get paid any more the entire time he was here. So when he's here in his home hospital, he gets paid the same. And normally speaking, in normal circumstances, that makes sense. But what has happened, because this has gone on for so long, is that people are quitting their jobs so that they can go travel to other locations and get paid almost twice as much.
I don't think there's that much of that. I'm talking about people straight up just leaving the healthcare field.
Oh, I mean, I can see that too.
They're burnt out. They're like, I'm done.
No, he was talking about they have more. I think he said they have more nurses on the floor that are traveling nurses than local nurses.
I mean,
it's like this shit's going on everywhere.
The healthcare industry was already kind of shorthanded. I mean, there's a lot of been a big push in the past, 5-10 years of trying to encourage more people to get into healthcare.
What's not going to be shorthanded in healthcare?
What?
Babies. Babies are down. We're not going to have a bunch of COVID babies because people are fucking ignored them.
But the main upcoming issue is all the baby boomers that are going into retirement homes.
Yeah.
There's going to be a growing need for retirement assisted living care.
All right. So if you're an OB right now, you need to be doing some geriatrics studies. So for the next couple of years, you can move over to geriatrics.
Gerontology.
It's geriatrics. That's the term. Anyway. I was reading an article earlier today. They were talking about they actually think that it started well before. That like over the summer the birth rates were down significantly, and that doesn't jive with the. It's they once the pandemic hit, there was a first little conversation about how we're gonna have a bunch of October, November babies because people were bored because they were locked down and making babies. But it turns out that this has lasted longer, and there has not been a boom now because of the timing, but more importantly, over the summer, which was pre-pandemic conception time, the rates were already down.
We initially thought that hopefully by the summertime we'll have numbers down.
That's what I'm saying. But conception for a summer baby would have been this time last year, which we didn't know anything about this yet.
I think if you look at numbers, that's where a lot of people. I mean, we had more people traveling for the summer. It was right around like 4th of July. We had numbers down, really well. Looks like we were on a good track.
Right.
I think a lot of people were like, some people traveled and that had little spikes, but then some people were just like, you know what, fuck it.
I'm not a scientist, but I think it was happening anyway. I don't think there was. I mean, as novel as this thing is, I think this was happening anyway. The spike here, spike there, or whatever. The rates were going to shift and change, go back and forth, or whatever, and where hot spots are going to change.
Well, I mean, they said, even back, in March and February, that like, we'll probably get numbers down, but come fall, like, there's going to be another second wave.
I don't think. I'd say I would argue that we, at least here in Knox County, we never had we're still in the first wave.
Look at the chart.
Does it go really high and drop back down, and then where does it go back up?
Yeah. I mean, it pretty much goes along with the U.S. trend. We had our spikes in March and April, and it started falling off until about mid to late July, and it slowly started going back up. Now we're at the highest numbers we've ever been at this entire pandemic.
Huh. I know we're the highest we've ever been currently. I agree with that, but I don't know. I feel like there's, to me, and then again, not a scientist and not a doctor by any measure. I think until the vaccine got here, there was a certain number that was going to exist no matter what. End of story. I think there was going to be this 300,000-ish number that died from contact with this thing no matter what. And it was either going to take 3 months or it was going to take a year.
Well, that chart's at least current hospitalizations. Just kind of telling you that's in that one article I was talking about.
Okay, so back in...
hospitalization normally correlate with...
Right, because we were late. We were certainly late here. It was like raging and everybody's freaking out, and we were around here like, what's going on, man? It's no big deal.
It's just everybody dying in New York City.
Late June, early July, we popped up to 40 hospitalizations or so, and it stayed pretty level, and then it grew from there. It didn't seem to have dropped at any point, really. It's like one day that drops down, but for the most part, we were at that.
Yeah, March and April, and I think May and June was starting to go back down, and then I think for the July weekend, you probably had a lot of people.
It's Mother's Day. I thought you said it was Mother's Day. It's been Mother's Day from the beginning.
Mother's Day was a spike. Yes.
I'm saying that.
I swear it is. Look.
If I look at the chart here that you've given me, and this is from WBIR for Knox County, it looks like it slowly grows up into July, and then it stays pretty level from July until late September, early October, and then it runs up to where we're at. It leveled off, but
I don't have to look at cases.
Because that's the other thing too, that it seems to me at least the death rate per cases has gone down significantly.
Well, yeah, we know more about the vaccine. We've certain therapies.
It's a good thing. I'm encouraged by that. But yeah, well, we've joked so many times about how we're tired of talking about COVID. We spent this entire episode on COVID.
Well, like I said, we're at the highest. I'm worried, literally. We're at the highest number we've ever seen. I don't think there's any sign of it going down by the end of the year.
All right, so to be fair, we're always going to be at the highest number we've ever seen because today is the day after yesterday, and yesterday was the highest number we've ever seen.
We're at the highest number of current positive cases
per day
we've ever seen.
Per day.
And a daily total.
Well, what I'm saying, the way they count it is it's 1 plus yesterday. So if we have one new case tomorrow, we have a higher case count than we had yesterday.
No, off your logic, a chart would just be a line going straight up the whole time. Because, yeah, we have a few more cases, and it's not compounding because those people that no longer have it drop off that scale.
Well, we talked about that.
You're doing that plus one.
No, we had a whole conversation about that because Tennessee was one of the states that was counting recoveries for a long time. They quit doing that. They just count cases. And it's not current active cases, the way I read it at least.
I'm pretty sure WBR does active cases in Knox County.
I don't know. See, that's where I'm confused too. I'm not a statistician, and again, this is where they're right that I am an idiot, and we need to put it in terms that I understand.
Yeah, some of it is really confusing.
Because I'm still curious.
Different states that were counting things a little bit differently.
And again, off the premise earlier that I'm assuming that I probably already had it. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I don't know if I hope I'm wrong or not. I hope I'm right. I guess. Am I better off having had it already and be done with it?
Yeah. I mean, logically speaking, that would mean that you should have some antibodies that would make you less resistant, or if you did catch it again, it wouldn't be as bad, and your body's able to fight it off a little better.
Right. I don't know. Anyway, just curious that thought process. And I did mean to call you out on air is that Knox County schools are not requiring the vaccine, nor is what I'm about to say, but the University of Tennessee is discussing requiring the vaccine once the vaccine is released to be an on-campus student.
Gotcha.
I think that's fucked up.
They do it for other stuff.
I mean, yeah, they do it for the flu too, which is what you argue that they don't do it for, or that Knox County Schools doesn't do it for, which you're correct. They don't. But
I think you have to have an out. Sometimes they make it a real pain in the ass.
It's like religious or some bullshit. Or you have a specific something that the side effects can be whatever.
Right.
Which I have heard on the coronavirus vaccine.
I swear I saw it. It's called like the very ass end of an infomercial. It was one of those, like, law firms for whatever, like, if you were someone, blah, blah, blah. And I caught the very end of it, and I want to find it again, but I swear it was talking about almost like a precursor to people to get the vaccine, that if you have side effects from COVID-19 vaccine, call our law office, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, then we started rolling out the vaccine.
Yeah,
unless they're talking about people that have been in these studies, which usually if you're in a study, you already sign a waiver saying you're not going to contest.
I just saw Pfizer, first doses of Pfizer vaccine flowing into the U.S. Just saw that headline on
That was
that.
one of those crazy. It had to be kept at like negative 150-something degrees Fahrenheit. I did read that AstraZeneca, because apparently there was a story that came out that they may have like flubbed some of their numbers or miscalculated something, so they were going to redo their trial. So they were saying theirs, had about the same, 90 to 95% efficacy, but was able to be stored at a lower temperature and may even, last longer. And I think the two main Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, I think they estimate that, will be effective, for 12 months. I want to say AstraZeneca said they were going to turn around and redo their whole trial again. I guess it was some lack of faith in what people were going to accept it as.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure.
Some people's worry.
When it gets here, you going to take it?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do. It depends on it.
I don't know which one. I agree. I definitely want to look at some of the numbers and look at some of the studies, like how many people were actually a part of that study.
I guess let's just keep an eye on AC.
What side effects?
See what happens to AC. Who's going to get it first round?
Who was it? Robin Wood, local news anchor. For some reason, that story is always on the WBR app. Like when I'm flipping through, it's always halfway down. It's the same fucking story. And
What is this? I don't know the story.
Robin Wood, she's a local news anchor for Channel 10.
Oh, she is. I don't know the story.
She got a part of the study.
No.
I don't know if it's publicity stuff. She said she was tired of reporting on it, so she kind of wanted to get like first-hand knowledge. And
Well, good for her being an actual reporter. Good for her.
Yeah,
I like that.
she didn't realize she was actually one of the customers in the place I used to work.
She's kind of cute.
Super nice.
She's not unfun to look at.
Definitely.
But yeah, I double negative. What's up?
This ain't grammar talk.
I don't know. It's I'm hesitant to say the least. I'm not gonna be first round just because it's not gonna be available to me first round. But
They did a story, I think, when the H1N1 and like the other like previous kind of big vaccine before that when they asked the general public, are you going to take it? And, it was like 40 or 50%, or maybe even 60% said they would take it. It's still kind of low numbers.
right.
So it wasn't too unlike, when they asked people, a few months ago, asked General U.S., hey, when there's a vaccine,
yeah, but that's because it was
take
Trump's. They don't want to take Trump's vaccine. They want to take Biden's vaccine.
Yeah, apparently he's still trying to take credit for it. He wants credit for it.
I mean, it was during his term. When he made Operation Warp Speed.
Like we weren't going to work on a vaccine without him.
He did the process.
Like, there's a virus. Like, well, what else to do? What's Trump say we should do?
I mean, he played his part, whatever the fuck part it is. He had to sign his own document somewhere in there. Maybe he was the first one to sign it, and everybody else signed it after him. Whatever.
Take credit for that. You got to take credit for everything else.
Mm-hmm. He gets credit for everything. No, I don't know. I don't know how credit works in the system.
He's already said he's not taking any blame for anything that went wrong during this pandemic. It's not his fault.
He can say that.
He wants all the credit.
He can say that if he wants to.
Well, I mean, yes, you physically have the ability to say whatever you want to.
I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I don't fucking know. All right, new subject. Talk about something different. And so, I mean, I don't know.
I'm worried about this guy that got assassinated. Was it last night, night before last? Saudi, or no, Iranian scientist.
What did he say? What was he scientist?
I believe he was some kind of nuclear scientist. He was also a scholar, but apparently he was like one of the heads in one of their one of their kind of nuclear field program. Did I say it incorrectly?
I don't know. It's another George Bush.
I don't know if I slurred or something. Nuclear.
I mean, I don't know. I'll say it on air to get it on. We'll be at war with Iran within the first 2 years of Biden's presidency.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, everybody thought that that Trump was gonna declare war on Iran.
Trump magically didn't start any new wars, and actually.
I still say we got lucky for Soleimani.
I
don't agree with that.
What, the assassination of Soleimani?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you want to bring somebody to a war tribunal? Yeah. You take matters in your own hands on another country's soil. I think that only gives.
It was in Iraq where we kind of control, so.
I mean, did we do it in the green zone? Did we do it on American land, soil, or anything?
I don't know. We could have been Baghdad.
We have knowledge of an imminent attack or anything like that we felt that he wouldn't have lasted if we.
I mean, okay. I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you on that we dodged a bullet there or whatever. I don't think Iran wants to go to war with us. I don't think Iran has any desire to go to war with us.
No, but everybody wants to flex a little.
I think that they are the new.
They want to be perceived as weak.
They are the next easy enemy for our next Orwellian continuation of Middle Eastern conflict, and the Afghanistan and Iraq have run their course, and we can't keep fucking pushing this ball down the road without something new and hot and active. And Biden will get us in something new and hot and active, and Iran's going to be it. It's my guess.
But yeah, in my opinion,
I could be wrong.
I mean, after Soleimani was killed, if we go off the logic that we used, that he had done stuff in the past, I think that gives other countries to use that same reason to where they can call in an airstrike to some joint on our land, whether it be the Afghanis, Iraqis, any other country we've fucking occupied, because we've been in so goddamn many.
Yeah, I mean,
or they can say, like, the Iraqis or Afghanis, just within the past 5 to 10 years, how many citizens have been accidentally killed. You can say, hey, you killed like 5,000 people last year on accidental bombing runs.
Obama. And Trump. And Obama.
Okay.
I'm
just saying, that gives
I agree.
the same reason.
Right,
we use that logic, like, okay, you take matters in your own hands, you're not going to try to go to a world tribunal like war crimes court.
In Iraq and Afghanistan, we have created 2 generations of people to fight against by our occupancy there. I mean, fuck, there are kids in Afghanistan right now that weren't born yet when we went there. It's fucking gross. And what did we accomplish? Heroin. Good job. We win. I mean, and again, and everybody likes to shit on. Everybody likes to shit on Trump or stuff, but I mean, we used to be winners thing where everybody got all shitty on him, like, oh, he's making fun of the military. Well, we used to fucking go and do a thing and win the thing and get it fucking over with. We didn't sit there for 20 fucking years and do nothing and not accomplish anything. Even if the goal was shitty, we at least accomplished the goal. You know, we went. I mean, fucking for shit's sake, Bush went in there and we got Saddam and we fucking murdered Saddam.
Trump credit for?
Do what?
What are you giving Trump credit for as far as?
I'm just saying he's not fucking wrong. We don't go win anything anymore. We just go fucking float around for 20 years and don't accomplish anything. All we've actually done in Iraq and Afghanistan is generate another generation of people that hate us.
These are complex wars that we've really been fighting. It's not traditional wars that we would ever think of. I mean, it's essentially kind of like, you know, almost like Vietnam era, like guerrilla warfare.
Okay, but I mean, what did we go there for?
Which country?
Pick one. I don't care.
I mean, I don't think there was really a good reason to go into any of them.
I agree with you. That's my point.
Vietnam, we went in right after the French. You know, the French were doing the same thing we were doing for
right. We went in there
7 years prior.
That was a proxy war with Russia, and I get it.
Right.
I mean, that one at least had. That one made sense in the proxy war part of it, at least.
Trying to prevent the spread of communism.
Right.
Which didn't do because we had to pull out, and Vietnam was communist for years.
Right. And we didn't help anybody really in the process. But again, Vietnam not being the Iraq Afghanistan being the conversation is like, why did we go? We went to get rid of
Iraq, supposedly yellow cake, and then it was to get rid of Saddam. I think there was a few different reasons kind of thrown around because we had a few different operations.
Okay, so the weapons of mass destruction didn't exist, and whether they knew it at the time, we can argue about that. That's not the point. The weapons of mass destruction didn't exist in Iraq, and we got Saddam, but we're still there. Why are we still there? Oh, well, if we leave now, then Iran's going to come take over the entire region. We can't let that happen because Iran's evil. And they're developing weapons of mass destruction. And since we can't use that motive to go into Iran because we used that on Iraq and got caught lying, we can't go actually into Iran and do anything unless, like, you know, something, like, we make something up to make that happen. But we can't use that weapons of mass destruction money yet. You know, so we have to stay there to keep Iran out of there, even though we had no business there in the first place because we lied about weapons of mass destruction. And you know, Saddam's the lesser of two evils. No government there. Saddam was more stable there as a shitty dictator than no government there has been since we've been there. And yet we're still there. And again, I understand the premise of we can't just fucking leave. Because we just fucking leave, then it's chaos, and it's worse than it was before. But it's not much better than it was before.
To install a puppet, like, all right, here's your new leader, bye.
Right.
You're like, no, you picked him out. We didn't.
Right. We don't like that guy either.
Who the hell's this guy?
Right. That's what I'm saying, though. It's like I don't know. I don't even remember where I started on that.
It's a complex geopolitical situation. Right?
I don't know that it is. I don't know that it's that complicated. I
think it is. I mean, you're dealing with countries that have been essentially, you know, factions of people that have been fighting for centuries.
And how many centuries did they fight each other before we went in there and helped them fight one way or the other? What did we change is my point. And really, and I guess what I'm.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we've changed.
I guess what I'm kind of poking at, not accidentally, but indirectly, is that what is our end in it? Our end in it is the military-industrial complex and access to something.
I mean, they were Americans and companies that were making money off of war.
Right, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's either contractors that are there doing some sort of project that are getting paid obnoxious amount of funds that you and I pay for.
There's a reason to.
It's not Iraqis paying for us to build some new roads because we blew them up. It's we are paying for these new roads, or it's Raytheon or Boeing or Lockheed Martin selling new bombers and shit like that. They're making great money off that. Good for them. Not for me and you because we're paying for that too. But for the Iraqi people and the American people, it's been a zero-gain effort. And it continues to be a zero-gain effort, but we stay there, and we blame it on this complex...
Like, oh, we're going there to fight them, so we don't have to fight them here.
Right. But we blame it on all this complex bullshit that doesn't really exist or matter.
I think there are some really complex issues into it.
Right, because we made them complex issues. They had nothing to do with us.
Some of them were complex issues beforehand.
But they had nothing to do with us.
Some of it worse.
They had nothing to do with us, other than maybe our ability to travel.
It had to do with our previous engagements with them as well. I think we were the ones that helped Saddam get power, and we also helped Saddam fight.
Right. We also funded the Bin Laden guy and the Taliban against the communists,
the Russians, yeah,
and stuff like that. We created
the Taliban, yeah.
Right. We created Bin Laden and
the Mujahideen, I believe.
Right. Well, we created that to fight the Russians, and then we had to go fight them because what? We had nothing else to do. We were bored. We had shit to fight. We inserted ourselves into a situation that we had no business being into, and now we were justifying staying in there because we created it, all this other kind of shit. We're not going to uncreate it. We're not going to fix it. So at some point, we just got to be like, at some point, you just got to wash your hands and be like, looks, we fucked up.
Part of it was, right after 9/11, a lot of people
I agree.
wanted some kind of retribution.
I agree.
We didn't look at where were the bombers from, because that was sure as hell not where we went.
Right. And we also didn't, think about why would the bombers want to do that to us? Oh, well, we spent the last 15 years fucking killing their friends and family and all that other bullshit and, pushing them down keeping them down in a hole so that we had access to their oil and other sort of things that we wanted over there. And that's really what it's about. It's either about government contracts or resources that are available the other darn here. Because apparently, other than
there's a lot of natural gas in Afghanistan. There's a big pipeline that goes from the north to south.
Right. Other than poppy. Other than poppy, I think they have a lot of lithium in Afghanistan. I think I heard too.
Some precious metals.
Something like that. Because lithium, all these batteries, trying to make Teslas, and Elon Musk needs his batteries.
That was one interesting thing. I remember either reading about or saw saw some documentary on a lot of people, and I agree with the logic. I wish that America could do more things. Like I wish we be able to make our own telephones. But one guy actually broke it down to where all those components actually come from.
Mm-hmm.
Australia's where there's a lot of precious metals. Where Australia is the only country in the whole fucking world that has this particular metal that's needed to make batteries or circuit boards and whatnot.
Yeah, we're gonna think about
we can
it.
actually make everything in America. Like we literally rely upon the rest of the world for different components.
Right. Rogan was talking about, he's like, if somebody made a Fairphone, I think he jokingly called it a Fairphone. I think there actually is a company called Fairphone that makes one that doesn't use any conflict minerals and goes out and sources things here and there and pays people a certain living wage depending on where they are or wherever to make it and all that kind of shit. Talking about our $1,200 iPhones. Yeah. I think he's never found somebody to throw him a number, but I think somebody jokingly was like, it'll be like $5-6 grand for something equatably functional to an iPhone 10 would be like $5 or $6 grand today against an iPhone 12 that's $1,000 today. And that's the reality, is that you and I and everybody we know for the most part,
not brought to you by Apple.
right? We accept the fact that we're okay with at least a pseudo premise of slavery.
Yeah, there's a lot of willful ignorance and consumerism. We don't really want to think about, what all has to be done to get some of our stuff. We just want it cheap. We want our Jordans cheap.
Yeah.
No, don't tell me that's made in a sweatshop somewhere. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me. No. I don't want to hear it. They, willfully just playing down.
Right. And I think, and then there's, and again, it goes back to a conversation we've had on here continuously. It's like, can we do it functionally? Can we functionally build how do I even think? I don't know how to think about it. That's part of the problem, I guess, is functionally a functional economy where everybody in the process is properly tended to. Granted that properly tended to is a relative term, but that you and I can, that all the parts and pieces and components and all those are mined and worked by responsible individuals and that get paid enough to do the job that they're doing. And I don't know, just the whole process is what we would consider free and fair for everybody in the thing. How much do we need to make to do it? And how does that, how does any economy function? I guess that's the thing I can't figure out. So how do you make an economy function?
It was much more simpler at times, but a couple hundred years ago there was a lot more, what was considered communal living, where a lot of everything that you got, pretty much was sourced semi-locally. You had some things that had to be, kind of trucked in from further off, but for the most part, you got, your basics, milk, bread, and things like that were able to be sourced somewhat locally. You had, coopers that were, making all your barrels. You had smiths that were doing all the blacksmithing.
Cobblers that were making your shoes.
Cobblers that were making the shoes. And chair cobblers.
and bakers are making the pies and the breads. And I mean, but again,
you still see in some smaller, European towns of, bakers that have been, or businesses that have been passed down through the generations. Like, my grandfather and grandfather before that, have all been, winemakers. We've owned this vineyard, and that's just always what we've done. We've been the local vineyard. So I think there's a way. I think some of it we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot of being no expectation, but I mean we've come to expect being able to have anything and everything at the click of a button at this point now, which wasn't really a thing even 15, 20 years ago. It was possible, but it was a lot slower.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm trying to what I'm trying to wrap my head around is that premise is how do you? I mean, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, which is part of the problem. Right. We understand that now. We understand that it's capable of.
Right. And really, they're taking cell phones out of people's hands. Talk about a riot.
Right. What to do? But even that, but not even that part of it. Just the idea of, I mean, there is a world. The world exists, and the idea of a world economy has to exist at this point. That's the genie you can't think about. Like,
there's still primal tribes that haven't really experienced like anything whatsoever.
Yeah. Sentinel Island.
Yeah. Some of those. I mean, there's tribes in the Amazon.
They kill Christians. Well, they kill anybody, but they're gonna die off in the next 10 years anyway.
I think so.
Yeah, I was reading a thing about them. They're getting to the point where they can't breed. I mean, they just can't. They can't reproduce functionally.
Numbers have gotten so small, it's getting unhealthy to breed.
Yeah.
I've heard about it talk about with indigenous languages. They talk about how many languages disappear literally every day because they're not getting passed down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting bit on Thanksgiving, which I'm not sure exactly what the intent was with it, but on the
Pequots.
No, the football game. It was the Cowboys played Dallas, I guess, on Thanksgiving. The Dallas always plays on Thanksgiving.
The Cowboys played Dallas.
Sorry, the Cowboys played the Washington football team.
Gotcha.
And so there was a bit in the intro talking about. I mean, it was basically like a public service announcement on why they got rid of the name Redskins. Which I mean, it's cool. I'm kind of disappointed that the best they came up with was football team, but I mean, whatever. If they dumped it, they dumped it.
Went for the least controversial.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they are a football team, and I can't argue with that.
Football's evil. But I like watching this. I like the sport, but the name football is evil. You can't say football. But it was kind of interesting because I mean, they talk about that. They talk about some of the different issues that Native peoples have had and stuff like that, and kind of what it means to them to hear the term redskin or whatever. And it's like, all right, I respect that. I'm not mad at it that you got that they got rid of it or whatever. But it's interesting that it was a guy that played football, and he was talking about his different issues and some of the racism that went on amongst other football players while he was there. And it's like, yeah, all right, that sucks. That's not cool. No, it was just kind of it just struck me as weird. I really failed to get what I was trying to think. What was in my brain?
Yeah, I kind of lost your point there.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. It was interesting. I like that they did it. I'm not mad at it. I'm just still trying to process it. I guess what I'm getting at. It's worth watching if you haven't seen it on YouTube. The pregame thingy for the Thanksgiving Day game. But
I'm trying to go back yet. So the guy that got assassinated a couple days ago, I guess Iran vows retaliation in quote unquote proper time for nuclear scientist killing. Apparently the theory is now that it was the Israeli, which Israeli and Iran have been warring for years.
See, that's one of the things to me that I'm sick. I don't understand. I asked my dad a while back. I was like, what is our deal? What is our deal as Americans in our relations with Israel? I don't understand why it's such an important political
I'm not sure where it began. I don't know if we helped out with the whole 7 Days War between Israel and Palestine, or
Like I don't like and again for
we were a big part of. We were a big part of World War II.
Right.
Even though we jumped in late, but
for everybody listening, I have zero understanding of any of the Israeli conflicts over time. But just and that's kind of the point, I guess. Again, is like I have no idea why we have it's our strongest ally in the region. It's like okay,
one of our only allies in the region,
right? And that's part of the thing. It's like okay, so and I get the argument is whether do they have a right to exist or not as a country. I understand that there's history and that they didn't exist and they did exist and they do exist because they took from other people and all this kind of whatever. But as far as our political relations with them, what value is it to us? And this is one of those things where I end up agreeing with Trump a lot. It's like, and maybe not agreeing with Trump a lot, but at least understanding the mindset. It's like, what is our, the business deal? What is the deal with this situation, and why do we care about this deal? Because Trump's been apparently one of the best presidents in modern history for relations with Israel.
How so?
At least for the Israeli side point or viewpoint.
Really?
Moved the embassy to Jerusalem, did some other shit for them. He's done a handful of shit for them.
What's the only thing we've really done in relation to Israel?
Well, he helped broker that fucking deal with UAE or whatever. Oh, okay, so he doesn't get the credit for that. Check.
Yeah, it was UAE and Sudan.
Okay.
No, that was was it Israel and it was Israel and Ethiopia, which I didn't even realize were at any kind of war, but apparently they did. I think that was all a big publicity stunt.
Oh, okay.
I'm not that up to date on warring countries outside of the U.S. and the U.S. is pretty isolated. We don't really give a shit about the rest of the world. Don't really care to learn much about the rest of the world, but I never heard of any kind of conflict between the two countries that signed some kind of peace deal.
So normalizing. So
my first thought was, what the hell are you talking about?
Brokering the normalization of relations between two countries is a bad thing? Or it just didn't really exist. It's just kind of a bullshit thing that he put on.
That was my take.
He got.
I could very much be wrong, but
he got two leaders from two different countries.
It was a huge deal
to come here, and
nobody else ever talked about. We talk. We don't really discuss much. What's still going on in Darfur, and there's still genocide going on in countries. And we just
there's nothing
gloss over that.
There's nothing there that we give a shit about. It's never people, obviously.
To put it bluntly, yeah.
I'm saying exactly that. It's not the people that we care about. It never has been.
Right.
And fucking World War II wasn't about people. But I think that is universally normal. That's not normal to us. That's not because we are we. That is universally normal. That is not something that any other country really gets
into Bosnia. I don't think we had too many ties in there. That may have been a little bit of a holdover of the end of the Cold War and trying to prevent maybe Russia from coming in and being the good guy in Eastern Europe.
Right.
I think over time, there has been kind of a tug of war between the U.S. and Russia, kind of being the strong arm of the military of the world.
Right.
So I don't think China's really ventured out too much militarily, as far as
not
putting their things in the way.
They do, but not in any sort of pretending to put it on in the sense of we're doing this for the good of those people.
Right. They stick more to this, Asia.
It's all China anyway. So.
They are the main superpower in Japan.
In Japan?
And Japan.
Oh, I thought you said in Japan. I was
and Japan.
But I don't know. This all started with my prediction, but I don't see any point in continuing any of this shit, and I don't see any of our
wars.
Yeah.
And I think we would do well to draw back.
I acknowledge that
protecting the country. I think it would be good to bring some of that. I'm not want to declare martial law, but for natural disasters happen, instead of trying to bring up all of the National Guard, we've got some of our standing army that can also.
Apparently, there's an amendment against putting standing army actual army
Yes.
on soil.
But I mean, hell, for the California fires, we were getting prisoners out to help fight the fires.
And they're cheap.
I'm sure that was a big thing part of
I mean,
it.
really, they're cheap, and the military's already paid for, so they don't count.
True.
Can't use something that's we already spent money on. And again, going to AC's point, it would be a huge economic issue if we brought back hundreds of thousands of soldiers and no jobs.
Right.
But that's not a fair excuse. That doesn't make it okay. That to me is like, okay, sure, we'll deal with it. We'll figure it out. Because then, I don't know, maybe our government can spend those trillions of dollars they spend on military on either not taxing us for it, and then the economy boom from having people willing to spend the money.
Budget and get some to the VA.
Right, or put projects together.
Or infrastructure.
Yeah. Bring 10,000 soldiers home and have them build.
I mean, there was talk of it at the beginning of the pandemic, kind of going back to the Great Depression and the Great Deal of kind of doing the Works Project. I can't remember exactly what it was called. But
The New Deal.
it was part of the New Deal, but it was...
You said the Great Deal, that's what I was correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Great New Deal.
The Great New Deal.
The New Deal.
I mean, okay, so that one, the Green New Deal, have you followed that at all? Do you know the depths of it?
Not the depths of it. I've glossed over it when it was first talked about. I haven't really read it.
I need to read a little bit more on it, because I'm not, like, if we're going to do government spending on stuff, forward-thinking government spending needs to be the way to do it. And I would be okay with it if it's within the budget. And by moving things out of the other budget. Like, I'd be okay with some of the premise of the Green New Deal if it's coming out of other budget points, not coming out of new taxes. And that's one of the things that I'm not sure on, and I need to learn more about it. I need to get the...
I don't think they talked about raising any kind of... I mean, they talked about raising taxes on, people making over $400,000 or whatever.
I was learning about, was it Sweden? Sweden's one of the references all the time for the Scandinavian countries that are semi-socialist or whatever, but they're not really.
Right.
Their corporate tax rate is less than ours.
At least I started trying to do some research, trying to figure out, different percentage points, because I was arguing with Max about... I thought he was wrong when there are some people that do get taxed like 50 and 60%. It's a very small fraction, but there are, there is a subsect of Swedes that do get taxed at a high rate. But nobody really goes into depth of what they're also not paying for.
I mean, who's not paying for?
The people themselves. I mean, you're not paying for healthcare.
Right.
You've got... I think it was Denmark that has, where basically you can apply to get this like semi-grant to basically help you find another job. And basically like, hey, I want to find a new career. I need to take 6 months off to really figure out how to get into another career. I mean, Sweden also, I think most people, essentially once you go into retirement, you have essentially government-funded assisted living. There's all sorts of benefits that you go into. You've got higher taxes, but there's a lot of money.
Right, on the other side, right.
You've got people in America that are paying, what we would consider, high taxes. Like, oh, we're going to tax too much, we need to lower our taxes. We're also paying a shit ton in health care, and there's so many people that just pretty much forego getting any kind of health care because they're like, I can't afford it.
Right. And, Social Security's probably not going to be there when we get there, even though that's supposed to be not...
Should I get hurt so I can go and start getting a disability and start getting some of the Social Security before it goes away?
Yeah. Because, that's one of my fears. I don't know how much I've paid into Social Security over my career, working, all that kind of shit. It's not been...
I think I get a letter
yeah, you get whatever
that tells me that.
Yeah. But it's not much when it gets down to it. And by the time by the time they start paying it out,
I'm sure you get a heavy penalty for kind of early withdrawal, unless it's legitimate. I think if you went on true disability, I think that's when you can start drawing some of your Social Security.
But even that, just the premise of it, it's like it's you're the only way it works. And this is, this wasn't why I was talking about birth rates, but the only way it works is if there's more kids than there are old people. It's the only way it works. Because it's like fucking pyramid scheme style. It's got to be like 5
into it to be able to pull from it.
It's got to be like 5 to 1 or something like that. It's got to be a significant number.
Because now we're like some of our biggest population is the baby boomers and the elderly at this point.
Not to mention we've borrowed money out of it for other projects a gajillion times and we're never going to pay it back anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not counting on it, but I'm kind of in a spot where I have to count on it because I'm not saving any money in any significant way that I'm going to be able to do it. I'm hoping to be.
I mean, a lot of people are still, they work up into their debt, basically. Like old people working at Walmart just to get insurance.
Right. My goal is to be debt-free. If I can get fully debt-free, get the house paid off, get all that kind of shit paid off, have the cash on hand to make a major purchase without having to take debt, and still have the businesses running functionally. It's the only way I get to retire. You know, like we've joked about all the time. It's like I'm mad at Max because he's kind of already retired. Although apparently his unemployment's backed off. He's down to normal unemployment. So, it's not a good time for business to slow down for us because now he actually needs to either find a job or we need to keep making enough money that he can not work and continue his lifestyle, which is expensive. But
that's life. It's life when you got kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have kids half the time that you also pay child support. Right. Which is weird. It just didn't make sense to me. Like, why is... Unless she's covering insurance and she's covering certain specific things...
There's weird laws. Some states screw over one party more than another, and some states are a little bit different as far as what you got to pay.
Tennessee screws over Tennessee screws over the dad. Period.
No, in most states too.
Yeah. Which I'm gonna get.
So it's just kind of.
I told you about this. Like I got the state started a lawsuit on the missus' behalf when we had our firstborn.
Yeah.
Yeah. They started a lawsuit on her behalf. Because we weren't married when we had our firstborn. Well, we weren't married when we had either kid, but we are now. But since we were unmarried and I signed off as the dad on the birth certificate, they started the lawsuit. And she had to decline the lawsuit for child support.
Like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. Take my name off of that, please. Take my name off the list.
Well, it's like one of those, not in an asshole sort of way, but like it would have been in my best interest to not acknowledge paternity, financially at least. It would have been in my best interest financially to not acknowledge paternity and just, be a good dad anyway. And then if something came up down the line and it became a problem, then I could not acknowledge paternity and then not have to pay child support.
It's true.
Which is, I don't know, it just seems fundamentally problematic. Like, I understand that there are places and there are spots in that are an issue, and there are circumstances where that makes sense.
That's one thing that's always been kind of weird about laws. I mean, it's hard to apply a law generally to people in varying situations.
Right.
That's where you do have, juries and judges that are supposed to be able to look at both sides and really try to weigh out some of the minor nuances and circumstances.
Right. Which that's becoming
justice is supposed to be blind, but it's not.
Right. It's become a new issue to me is jury nullification. Back when I had Josh Eagle, the Libertarian Party chair for state of Tennessee, on, we were talking about that's a major issue for the state party. It's always been a thing where if you're a juror, you are legally allowed to say, yes, I believe that person committed this crime, but no, I don't believe it should be a crime.
I heard an interesting story that was talking, some states have, I guess it had to do with kind of like libel laws, where a lot of times, where it's like a big company that's found at fault, for somebody dying, where it's like, well, why doesn't the company just say they're sorry? But if you say you're sorry, that's admitting guilt.
Yeah.
So a lot of states that puts you under, I guess, legal culpability.
Yeah, I mean,
they literally they can't write an apology letter to the family because that would be them taking credit for it.
And then that
haha, you said you're sorry. Now you're on the hook for $5 billion.
Right. And then, yeah, it's the way
we want to say sorry, but we kind of can't.
Right.
And it's just something, I don't know if it's an old law or if that's just the way the laws were in the book.
Well, it's like, I mean, I was watching a video of a lawyer, and he was teaching a law class. He was like, never talk to a cop, period. Doesn't matter. Never talk to a cop, period. And he's like, because it doesn't matter what their actual intent is, what your actual intent is. It doesn't matter anything about the situation. If the circumstances make it a way that they can put something on you for it or something like that, they can. Never talk to a cop. And it's like, you know, and so like somebody in the audience or whatever asked, it's like, well, what if this happens? Or it's like, nope, get your lawyer. Make your lawyer. Tell your lawyer to tell the cop that. But you don't tell a cop that. Never talk to a cop, period. So you witness a crime, you get a lawyer. That is his advice. Because...
Is he sponsored by lawyers? Because lawyers are fucking expensive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is a lawyer, so maybe that's what it is.
Hey, give me a call. You guys have trouble, give me a call. Maybe
that's what it is. But he goes into more detail about how, like you know, it's like, you know, like he references a bunch of different cases or whatever where it's like, you know, person there's a witness to, it's like, well, how did you know that? It's like, well, because I saw it happen. Well, the only way you saw it happen is if you were part of it. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
You know, and it's one of those where, you know, and you know, and again, it's part of the problem. It's not necessarily that the cops are bad or whatever, the prosecutor's bad. It's just that they have a incentive to close a case, and sometimes they might not bother getting the right person. They just need to get a person and get it done. And if they can use certain things that you said when you're cooperating to at least sell it to look like you, then they get to close the case and then move on. And I mean, it's a shitty thing, but going to what you're saying, it's like the way the legal system has worked. It's like there's certain things you can and can't do, not because you do or don't want to do them, but because it turns into it becomes an issue for everybody. If you do the right thing as a human being, it puts you in a position of weakness, not that's the best word I get. Not weakness in that you look bad, but weakness in that you can have further issues than just being like, hey, you know what, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Because that's what a human being should do, because you fucked up. But if you say the words, I'm sorry, I fucked up, more things happen, and more costs, and more fees, and more this, that, and the other, and all of a sudden, you know, the whole thing falls apart, and you can't do shit anymore. So, fuck, I don't know, alright. It's good for me, good for you?
Let's call it.
Alright, fuck those guys that can't make it. Bass. In a second. Bass. It's not really that basic. Alright, fuck it. I tried. It's episode 37, I think we agreed on, right?
Yep.
Well, we're fully in agreement on what episode number it is. Like I said, I got Matthew Park on Monday. I'm going to talk to him about all the different stuff he's going on since his campaign went to the wayside. Got a couple of people I'm reaching out to. Got some more stuff coming up. Let your friends know about us. We need some more followers and listeners and more stuff to talk about. So almost in agreement at gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I almost said MySpace. We do not have a MySpace page. Don't look for us on MySpace. Don't know where that came from. We're grinding on. We're gonna have a football talk here pretty soon. I gotta talk to somebody who understands this new expanded playoff system in the NFL.
I'll take myself out of that.
Sam says no, thank you. Alright guys, have a great night. We're welcoming December. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. Looking forward to a great holiday. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. Other cool appropriate things. Good night, everybody.
Bye.